Picture two businesses, same service, same town, same customers walking in the door. One owner is exhausted, margins are thin, and growth feels like it's adding weight instead of momentum. The other is making 10 times what the other business is making, with a team that isn't 10 times bigger and a calendar that isn't 10 times fuller. Same skill, same market, wildly different outcome. It's not talent, it's not luck, it's a decision the second owner made about how the business itself is built. Probably without even calling it a decision. The ideas here come from patterns seen across many real businesses. One thinker whose framework on packaging value has influenced my own thinking is Alex Hormozi. His perspective helped spark several of the distinctions that we're going to explore in this video. By the end of this video, you should have a clear map for how to think about turning your experiences and labor into sustainable, scalable profit without sacrificing the quality of the work or the integrity of the business. Most advice for service businesses lives at the surface. Get more leads, post more content, follow up faster, all useful. None of it touches the actual real reason home service businesses stay capped at a certain size while others turn the same expertise into something much bigger. The reason comes down to structure, so we're going to look at that properly. Here's where almost every service business starts. You, your time, and a client's problem. A haircut, a consulting hour, a repair, a campaign. Someone pays you to solve something and you solve it. For a while, this works fine. Then growth starts and something strange happens. The growth starts to feel like a burden instead of a win. More clients mean more people who needed to deliver the work, more training, more oversight, more chances for inconsistency. The owner who used to do everything themselves is now managing people instead of solving problems, and the quality that built the reputation in the first place gets harder to protect at scale. You guys know what I'm talking about. This is the ceiling that almost every service business hits. It's not a demand ceiling, it's a structural one. The business runs on people, and people don't scale the way systems do. The instinct when this happens is to reach for more marketing, more ad spend, more content, but adding fuel to an engine that's already straining doesn't fix the strain, it just burns through more fuel. The real question isn't how do I get more clients? It's how is this business built and how does that structure even allow for more without breaking? Once you step back from the day-to-day, there are really only a handful of service-based businesses that can scale beyond one person's time and effort. And sometimes it's just the way the owner likes to operate. They want to scale, but they want to control everything. Each one trades something for something else. None of them is automatically the right answer. The right one depends on the kind of business you're running and the kind of risk you're willing to carry. The first path is ownership. You build it yourself, more staff, more locations, more capacity, but you hold on to every single piece of it. I see a lot of business owners do this exact thing. This gives you full control, and when it works, the highest profit per location because nothing is being split with anyone else. Sometimes we like to not split stuff at the expense of not scaling our business. The trade-off with this is that every bit of growth costs you directly. More capital, more hiring, more management. This path tends to work best when the service itself can be standardized. When quality doesn't depend entirely on one specific person's judgment, but on a process that can be taught and repeated. The second path is letting other people build it for you. Think of the franchise model. You're not the one opening every new location. Someone else puts up the capital, takes on the lease, hires the team, and runs the day-to-day, while you provide the brand, the system, the support, and return, and then you just take a cut. This can grow much faster than you could grow on your own because you're not the bottleneck on capital or the labor anymore. But you also give up direct control, and you only make real money once there's scale, a lot of it. It also means your job shifts from running a business to supporting the people running businesses under your name. The third path is packaging the method itself. Instead of expanding the business, you teach what you know to other people. Your process, your approach, your way of solving the problem turned into something others can license or learn directly. This is the fastest path to cash flow probably, and it requires the least overhead because you're not responsible for someone else's day-to-day operation. But the weakness is durability. Once someone learns your method, there's little to stop them from just taking it and running it without you. This path wins through speed, not protection. It works well when you're comfortable moving fast and accept that what you teach can eventually walk out the door. Now, the fourth path is turning the service into technology, software, automation, a platform that delivers part or all of what a person used to deliver by hand. This has the highest ceiling of any of the four because software doesn't get tired. It doesn't need management, it can continue running, and it can serve far more people than any team could. It also has the highest cost of entry, time, capital, technical skills, and it lives or dies on one number. And a lot of self-employed, service-based business people hate technology. Also, a lot of service providers underestimate how hard that retention bar is to clear. Build something people stop needing after a month and the technology was never really a business. So 4 paths, 4 different relationships with control, capital, speed, and risk. Most owners don't choose between them. They just end up in whichever one felt closest at the time, often without realizing there were other options on the table. Now there's a 5th dynamic that cuts across all 4 paths, and it's the one most service businesses never fully use. It's access. Access is different from a product or a standardized service. A product is something someone receives. A service is something done for them. Access is something they're let into, direct, limited, personal involvement with whoever actually understands their problem. Here's why it matters so much though. Access shrinks the distance between a person and the outcome they want. When someone buys a generic service, they're hoping it works. When someone buys access, a closer, more guaranteed, more personal version of the same expertise, they're buying certainty. So check this out. They're buying certainty. And certainty is worth a premium most people will happily pay because uncertainty is exhausting to sit with. This is where scarcity comes in, and it's counterintuitive. The instinct when something is in demand to serve as many people as possible, fill every slot, say yes to everyone, but maxing out demand quietly destroys it. If everything you offer always sells out completely, always books up all of your time, you've used up the moment. There's no leftover wanting, no story to tell, no reason for anyone watching from the outside to feel like they need to move fast next time. The smarter move, especially with high touch or an access-based offer, is to deliberately leave demand on the table. Take fewer clients than you could. I know that's hard to hear, but sometimes you need to take fewer clients than you could. Let some interest go unmet. That unmet demand doesn't disappear, it becomes pressure. And pressure over time compounds into trust, proof, momentum, and that momentum's worth far more than squeezing out that one extra sale today. Step back even further, and there's a reason all this works the way it does. And it's less about marketing than it is about how people are wired. People don't actually buy outcomes, they buy relief from uncertainty. Every unresolved question in someone's mind, will this work? Will I regret it? Am I making a mistake? Costs them something mentally. It's kind of a tax they're paying just being unsure. When businesses remove that uncertainty through access, through guarantees, through proximity to someone who's clearly already solved the problem, it's not just adding value, it's lowering the cost of saying yes. This connects to something well documented in behavioral psychology. People weigh the fear of a bad outcome more heavily than they weigh the appeal of a good one. That's why a guarantee or a closer relationship with a provider often moves someone to act faster than a lower price ever could. And it's not about the math, it's about the discomfort of not knowing and who's willing to take that discomfort off their hands. And there's another effect happening underneath all 4 scaling paths too, compounding. A service business retaining most of its clients year over year looks completely different 5 years out than one that's constantly replacing the one that loses. Small differences in retention, consistency, and experience don't show up immediately. They show up later multiplied. Here's the honest version of what we've noticed watching service businesses grow. Almost no one chooses their structure on purpose. They drift into whichever path required the least decision making at the time, usually just doing more of what they already do. That's not a failure of effort, it's a failure of stepping back long enough to ask which path actually fits the business they're trying to build. So before reaching for more leads or more content, it's worth asking a different question. Not how do I get busier, but given the kind of service this is, the capital available and the risk that's tolerable, which of these services actually fits? Ownership, distributed expansion, packaging the method, distributing technology, or layering access. They're not mutually exclusive, and most businesses that do grow significantly end up blending more than one over time. The size of a service business rarely comes down to how good the work is. It comes down to whether the structure underneath it can hold more weight without buckling. Two businesses can do the exact same thing for the exact same customers, and one will quietly outgrow the other, not because it works harder, because someone made a deliberate choice about how value gets packaged and delivered. That choice is available to every service business owner. Most just haven't been asked the question yet. If you run a service business, it's worth a few minutes to actually map out which of these 4 paths you're currently on and whether you ended up there on purpose or by accident. Drop it in the comments. We're curious how many people realize they've never actually chosen.